Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Guilty as Charged podcast, coming to you live on a Saturday morning. It's college football championship weekend. It's a great weekend to watch football. Obviously, the Chargers are on Sunday night, so hopefully, everybody listening, watching, has a wonderful weekend. This is a great time to be a fan. Obviously, seasons are coming down to the home stretch, but it's the best time of the year for that reason. So excited to dive more into the Chargers and Chiefs matchup with my guy Tyler. Tyler, what's up, man? I saw you had a very inspirational workout this morning thanks to your gym. So you must be pretty fired up today.
Yeah, I first started with the total ego lifter thing. There was no music at the gym to start. So you could just hear everyone, yelling and throwing their weights and just like watching some guys squat for like a third of the range of motion, but like screaming and yelling. It's like, okay, so this is the start of my whole workout. And I only found one earphone today, so I could not find my other earphone. So the other half of my ear just hearing this crap in my ear. But then, of course, just like in the movie, Boromir comes to the rescue. They were showing Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, and at Amon Hen, Boromir races to save Merry and Pippin and has that big redemption moment. I'm like, all right, I'm focused. I'm locked in. If he can take 3 arrows, I can lift 3 more reps or whatever. So yeah, fun stuff. Hey, Becca, I see my sister Becca in the chat. Hello, that's my youngest sister. Hi, hello, Becca. There you go. Unless someone copied my sister's name.
Yeah. I don't think that would be the case, but I have not been back to a gym since like 2022, just because we bought like a Peloton and a bunch of weights and stuff like that. During like COVID and stuff, and then I went back to the gym, and I just like it gave me such anxiety. I just couldn't handle it. It was so loud and messy and stuff like that. So we have a home gym, and it's great, and I love it. I don't have to deal with all of that stuff. But it is what it is.
Yes.
Okay. So obviously the Chargers Chiefs tomorrow night on Sunday Night Football. We are going to take some questions today, but of course have to kind of wrap up our coverage of this matchup. So from an injury standpoint, we will start there. The big news of the week, obviously, is the availability of McConkey. So his final injury designation is questionable. He is listed with a knee/shoulder. But Jeremy Fowler was reporting about this on ESPN this morning and said that the knee is more of a concern for his availability. So basically, he is going to play through the shoulder injury. It's not considered a major injury. It's just kind of a pain management situation. The knee is the issue in terms of availability. But he was limited in practice all week, which I think is a pretty good sign. And him being questionable means he has a good chance of playing. The question is like how effective and efficient is he going to be with his movements and things like that. And obviously the Chiefs play a ton of man coverage, and he's the Chargers' one receiver who can beat man coverage. So it's a big deal that he can potentially play, and he of course is going to aim to play. So that is very helpful for the Chargers.
Yeah, the good news is he was limited, and that's more than I expected. Questionable is more than I expected given the 2 injuries that there are. I don't anticipate he contributes a ton this game. He's been on a really good streak, which is awesome, but I can't see him playing more than, well, he'll play 10 times more snaps than DJ Chark. So he'll be out there for sure. But I don't know how effective he'll be. If he plays a lot of snaps, I'd imagine it's more so as a kind of decoy, kind of be out there. You have to put some attention on him, but I'm mostly seeing McConkey as a guy who is like 10 meaningful snaps, and that's kind of it this game. He's tough, obviously. I expect him to be out there, and he wants to be out there, and I think he'll be out there, but I just don't see him contributing a ton this game, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think the snaps will be limited. I think we probably see it kind of go back to what it was at the start of the season, where Palmer was kind of the guy who was getting all of the snaps. Quentin was kind of second in line from a snap perspective, and then Ladd was third. And I think we kind of see it go back to that a little bit just for this week. So, I mentioned Joshua Palmer as my X factor on Thursday. I think that obviously becomes much more important if Ladd is only playing 40 to 50 snaps as opposed to 75, 80 as he usually does. So That's important. But Ladd being out there is obviously helpful. At minimum, they can use him as kind of like a decoy and draw attention, and there's value in that. But hopefully, he's able to, be more of a factor. On the opposite side of the ball, the linebacker news this week is a little up and down, and we'll see what happens with Junior Colson, but he is eligible to return from injury reserve this week. He did log a full participant in practice on Friday, yesterday. And so that's usually a good sign of a potential return. And on the opposite side there, Denzel Perryman is officially doubtful to play, which generally speaking means that he's going to be out. When you're listed as doubtful, it is not a great sign for your actual availability for the game. So it sounds like we could get Junior back and lose Denzel Perryman again for this week. We'll see officially once all of the designations come out in the next couple hours. But if Junior can come back, that obviously would be a big boost for this linebacker core, because this specific matchup it's a tough linebacker matchup given how the Chiefs play and the interior offensive linemen that they have that can get downhill in a hurry.
Yeah, that is definitely a tough one to return to. Do you expect him to start over Troy Dye, or do you think they'll do more of the original Junior Colson split when Perryman was the starter, like week 1, week 2?
Yeah, I think it would be more of a rotation. I don't think you put him back full rotation in his first game back from injury.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I can't believe I'm forgetting this. What was the injury again?
Hamstring injury.
Hamstring injury. Great, another good tricky one. Happy to see him back out there. I think they could definitely use him.
I'm sorry. His first injury was a hamstring injury. This injury was an ankle injury, the one that he was placed on injury reserve for.
There were a few things, and there was an appendicitis in there somewhere too. Okay, well, regardless, I think, as you said, rotation, not playing a ton of snaps, but good to see him back out there. I mean, Troy Dye's been playing great, but they've still missed Perryman this whole time, no matter how good the both linebackers have been playing. So, yeah, Troy Dye, I guess, playing more snaps this week.
Yeah, I would have him as the starter still. Just I think you would worry a bit about his Junior's return in the first game being this specific matchup. Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of talk about Junior being a disappointment for his rookie season, and I just I don't share that same kind of sentiment. I mean, we're talking about a position that's very difficult to transition to in the NFL, and when you don't have training camp, you're missing games. It's very difficult to make an impact as a linebacker in your rookie season when you're not on the field. And so the disappointment for me is just for him, being injured and dealing with all of these things.
Yeah.
You hate to see it, but I still believe that Junior becomes the guy that we were so excited for next season. And I think he'll be right there next to Dayon, and the Chargers could potentially have, one of the best linebacker cores in the league going forward. I still think that potential for Junior is tremendously high. He's just got to kind of ditch this little injury bug and not have an appendicitis during training camp.
There's no part about me that's worried about Junior Colson's future, so long as he doesn't continue to sustain injuries or find another appendix to rupture somehow in the middle of another training camp. So as long as he can avoid those things, which is a big if, of course, he should be fine. I mean, this is the guy that it's not like the team isn't familiar with him. They drafted him and whoops, we learned something about his character. No, they know who Junior Colson is. And he was Navarro Bowman's linebacker 1, and they wanted to play him over Dayon Henley. They feel very strongly about him. And I'm glad that we have Dayon Henley to look at and say, okay, he played this number of snaps last year. Yeah. Boom, this year, what an explosion. And Junior Colson's supposed to be the best guy in that room. I mean, we were talking about in the spring, where they basically told Colson, stop answering questions because he knew everybody's responsibilities.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about him long term. All these reps this year at this point are it's good experience.
Yeah, it is good experience. And I think, it's pretty similar to the cornerback trio, where that trio just has not played a ton of snaps together, but now we feel really good about their ability to make an impact. And I think the linebacker trio, even if Junior is only playing 25, 30 snaps a game, all due respect to Troy Dye, I feel better about that rotation with Denzel taking on his role, Junior kind of rotating in, getting some valuable snaps that way. And I think it's going to be a lot of value. I mean, this team is going to play in a playoff game most likely. And so Junior potentially getting those opportunities, those reps, even if he was very limited this year, is just going to be very valuable for his second season when he's coming off that kind of season. So hopefully he can stay healthy from here on out.
Yep.
And then the last one, Cam Hart off the injury report, which we should mention, very, very important for him and for this team. But Tony Jefferson did not practice the last 2 days with a hamstring injury. He was kind of the Perryman replacement last week in terms of just like wanting to hit people and just like run downhill. It was great to see. But he's officially questionable, but he did not practice the last 2 days. If he cannot play this week, that would be kind of an issue from a roster management standpoint. The Chargers do not really have a great safety situation on the practice squad, so they maybe could bring up like another corner, or maybe Dean Leonard, who's taken some safety snaps, could kind of be their quote unquote fourth safety. But again, not having that kind of physical presence with Tony out there, I think is potentially an issue for them.
Yeah, especially in a week where there's no longer that, hey, Derwin, go make sure Tyreek Hill. Not that Xavier Worthy isn't fast. He's fast. I get that. But it's not quite the same thing. And they've slowly started to move Derwin closer. And Tony Jefferson allows you to do that. Or Elijah Molden allows you to do that. And of course, Alohi when he's healthy. If they can't really do that, it's a tough week to not be able to do that with Derwin James, with Travis Kelce, with the running back situation. You probably want to play, or even blitzing Patrick Mahomes or spying Patrick Mahomes or whatever. So hopefully they can find a way. It's a bit of a bummer if we're not saying his name, but it's a bummer that AJ Finley is not with the team because I thought he played pretty well. Not really sure what happened there. I'm fine with Elijah Molden playing over him, and like obviously that's been great. But losing him and then him immediately getting picked up by another team was definitely unfortunate, because I'd feel much better in this situation having seen AJ Finley on this team playing well in the offseason, in the preseason. So bummer there. So hopefully they're able to free up Derwin James enough, because this is kind of one of those games where you need it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So Kendall Williamson is on the practice squad. He has not been elevated yet this year. I to be completely honest, I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know he was on the practice squad.
I didn't either. So you mentioned it. Yep.
So I think the plan would be probably elevate DiCaprio Boodle, and then you obviously increase Marcus May's role this week. Hopefully he's had a good week of practice, and then you can kind of maybe play Dean in a pinch back there if you need him to. But not great that Tony's potentially not able to play. We'll see what happens tomorrow, but hopefully he's able to give it a go.
There's no way I'm going to be able to find this in time, but I was curious in the post-draft presser if they mentioned Tarheeb still at safety at all. Not that I would love for him to be the starting slot corner, obviously, but given his instincts and what he can do, if you're running out of bodies, and if they are comfortable with Jaw Taylor, at least for this game, playing some in the slot, I would get it. I would understand why they would go that route.
Yeah, I know Klingskull talked about all of the slot players being trained to also play safety.
Mm-hmm.
So I would imagine that Jaw Taylor and Tarheeb have at least like taken some reps in practice. And then like at the tail end of training camp is when they started to move Dean around. And Dean has like the speed and the range to potentially play like deep safety. I wouldn't like hate that. But we'll see what happens. Obviously, it's good news that the Chargers are getting Alohi Gilman back this week. He wasn't even on the injury report at all. So, there is that. Obviously, you feel great about Derwin, Elijah, and Alohi, and then Marcus May. So the Chargers safety room is not, talentless, but they are going to miss kind of Tony's physical presence and his leadership. There was also a really cool story from Omar Navarro about the relationship between Tony Jefferson and Tarheeb Still. And Jefferson actually scouted Tarheeb last year when he was with the Ravens, and so there's been a pretty cool dynamic between those two. If you missed that is on Chargers. Oh yes, I'm sorry. Gilman is on injury reserve. That is my mistake.
Yeah,
that's my bad. I appreciate LD Bruin for pointing that out. So, yeah. Okay. From a Chiefs perspective, I did see that Mecole Hardman was just placed on injured reserve. That's obviously big news from a special team standpoint. He's not necessarily a super impactful wide receiver, but he has been kind of their jet sweep player, so it's more of a special teams loss. And then it sounds like the Chiefs are planning to start DJ Humphries at left tackle. Jeremy Fowler from ESPN again kind of hinted at it potentially being like a rotation because he has been out of the league for most of this season. And so they might rotate snaps between him and Wanye Morris. We'll see what happens. It's not a great situation at left tackle either way. So I still think we can kind of copy and paste our segment from the edge rushers. I still think we feel great about whoever is playing left tackle, that the Chargers should have an advantage on that side.
Yeah, even if DJ Humphries was starting this whole game, I would still feel pretty good about this matchup. It's his first game back, so that's a heck of a matchup to return to for sure. So I'm sure they're stoked to have any bit of him out there, but I still feel good about this matchup, the edge rushers, etc. It's a very big game for them.
Yeah, it is a big game. Obviously, the Chargers trying to, stay close in the divisional race, and the Chiefs trying to wrap up the divisional race. So it is what it is. I was looking at DJ Humphries earlier. So last season, for the Cardinals, he allowed 28 pressures, which is generally solid. His pass blocking efficiency rating though was 97, which is right around the same number as Jawan Taylor. So he might be an upgrade from Wanye Morris, but I don't know if I would be like super comfortable with calling that like a massive upgrade. Like a lot of Chiefs fans are like, yeah, this is great. We love this. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like DJ Humphries has been in the league for a really long time and he's never been better than like fine. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Maybe they're I'm assuming, I don't know this for sure, but they're hoping at least for not the avalanche terrible game that some of the other tackles have had. So even if he's fine, but it's 4 pressures and not whatever I just watched against the Raiders the other week, which was, again, they gave up 30 pressures in that game, then yeah, I guess that's an upgrade. I suppose that's avoiding the awful game, which I suppose is an upgrade.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna get to our prize pick selections of the week here in a second. Looks like we got a few new people in the chat today, including Saint Razo. So appreciate Saint for jumping in, and then we got a bunch of the usual suspects as well. So after we get to our prize pick selections of the week, we'll start touching on some of these questions as well as getting to our super chats that we already have. So you guys can fire away with the questions, and we'll get to those in a minute here. But Prize Picks has been a great partnership for us. Again, super easy to use, best and easiest way to get into the daily fantasy sports world. We do this every Saturday. We pick players related to the Chargers game, so we can do Chargers Chiefs for this week. And then we will submit lineups tomorrow to have our official lineups of the week. So Tyler, for you, looking at Prize Picks, where are you first drawn to for the Chargers this week?
Unfortunately, it is to Lad McConkey, and I'll take the less for him. It's been pretty easy to take the more from him in almost any category most weeks, but
yeah,
even though 59.5, I think last week it was close to 80. So 59.5 this week is obviously a downgrade for an obvious reason, but
yeah,
I just don't know how involved he's going to be. If you want to gamble on him on the more, then maybe Lad McConkey on the 22.5 for his longest reception, because maybe he gets just one incredible play. He had a 40 whatever yarder against the Chiefs last time, so he can get you that one play maybe, but that's a risk. So with Lad McConkey, I'd preferred maybe to go with the less on the receiving yards there. Will Dissly is now a tough one for me. If you look at how he's done the last few weeks, it's like either he completely gets over it and he has like triple the amount sometimes, or he's a complete non-factor. And I don't really know what direction they might go. I will say with how last week looked and the lack of a check down and lack of involvement, I kind of feel that swinging the other way is possible this week. With that said, they do have a good group of linebackers. I don't know how involved they'll be with Dissly specifically, but he's at 38.5 receiving yards. I'm going to take him going the other way with the more on Will Dissly this week.
Yeah, I was looking this up. The Chiefs have been pretty successful for tight end matchups this year. Obviously, they've kind of taken a step back as a pass defense overall, and the tight ends that they've played have been kind of the benefactors. I want to kind of pivot away from Lad this week, like you mentioned, and like we've mentioned, he's going to be a little bit limited. I expect he's going to be, priority number 1 for Steve Spagnuolo. So for me, Disley's an interesting one, but Joshua Palmer's number is only at 35.5 receiving yards. That to me is a situation where I could see him getting, a big play. He's had some very big plays against the Chiefs in the past. Obviously, he's had the huge almost touchdown at Arrowhead last time. Previous Sunday night matchup, he had a big, touchdown. I think it was the opening touchdown. So he's had some big moments against the Chiefs in the past. I think on average he's around 55 yards against the Chiefs for his career. So I'm inclined to trust Palmer this week. I think this is going to be kind of an opportunity for him to maybe close out the season strongly and show Justin that he's kind of their number 2 target. So 35.5 for me. I'm going to go more there. What are your thoughts on Gus Edwards this week? Because it's a tricky one, obviously, but to me, I think I'm more inclined to potentially look at the longest rush number for him. I don't know how much volume I trust, but his longest rush is 9.5. So basically, can Gus give me one explosive rush? I think he can get there. He had 2 last week, and the Chargers are blocking more effectively recently.
Yeah.
So I'm inclined to look at the longest rush for Gus. His total rush yards number is 35.5, and then his rush attempts is 10.5. Did you have one for Gus, or were you kind of staying away from him for now?
I think every time I've gone for the Gus Edwards anything, I think I've been wrong this entire year. So take that with a grain of salt, I suppose. If they can't get 35.5 rushing yards out of Gus Edwards this week, and it's not because Kamani Vidal had 52,000 yards like Alex wants.
Yeah, Kamani's not even on here for what it's worth.
Yeah. So he's not even on there. But they have to get more than 35.5 out of him this week. So this is the last time I will say more for Gus Edwards if I'm wrong, but I'll say Gus Edwards more than 35.5 rushing yards, which is really sad. That's where we're at with Edwards and being the leading rusher. Yes, the Chiefs are a good rushing defense. I'm sure the number would have been higher, and it was higher, I believe, last week. But even with the rushing attempts, if you look at his last 5 weeks, which you can look at on PrizePicks, he's been on the less 5 games in a row. Probably more than that too, but they just look at the last 5. He's been under on the rush attempts. I mean, whatever we think, like, oh, this is a really good matchup to run the football. 6 attempts, 9 attempts, 6 attempts, 10 against the Titans, and then 6 against the Chiefs the last time he played. So it's like the last time he played them. So he had 6 attempts last time he played the Chiefs. Now he's at 10.5. So I think I'll take the rushing yards more than the attempts because they clearly have no interest in getting him the ball 15, 18 times. But on the yards, you got to get 36 yards, man. This line is blocking well, but 36 for the starting running back for this team.
Yeah.
It's a little sad. Not necessarily an efficiency issue with Gus Edwards. They just flat out haven't been running him. They ran him 3 times in the second half last week. So that is tricky. What I would advise every Chargers fan to do is once the second half or the first half is kind of wrapping up, they will have second half projections. I would take the less on everything on the offense in the second half. And you're probably right. Like, I don't know what those projections are yet, but whatever the less is in the second half, I'm sure they're all right. They had 37 yards last week, guys. So if it says Herbert more or less 100 yards in the second half, I'm sorry. I might have to take the less there.
That's sad. So again, that's another great feature of PrizePicks. You can jump in at halftime and get some live action lineup picks for you. The other Chargers one that I think is worth bringing up every week at this point in time. Cameron Dicker at 1.5 field goals feels like an automatic at this point. So if you're just looking for an easy layup on PrizePicks, Cameron Dicker is probably that guy. If you're maybe a little more optimistic about the offensive chances to score touchdowns, his kicking number, just like total kicking points, is at 7.5. So if you think the Chargers can maybe get a couple touchdowns and a couple of field goals, you could go that route as well.
Yeah.
Steven Herbert does have a rushing prop, so his rush attempts number is 4.5. So I would be a little inclined to take that because that obviously counts for scrambles. And I think we do see him get back to a little scramble mode this week. But the yardage, I think, was at 16.5.
So I was typing in the code there. 18.5 rushing yards, 9.5 for longest rush, and somewhere he had rush attempts, 4.5 rushing attempts, which I think given the team, they could be a bit more aggressive. And they did, 2 QB sneaks last week?
Yeah.
So I think on a couple of fourth downs here and there. Yeah. As long as you don't give it to Haskins.
Yeah, don't do Haskins this week. Saint asking about this. Do you all have a code for Prize Picks, and could I play Prize Picks in California? You can play Prize Picks in any state, is my understanding, because it's not a gambling site. So it's daily fantasy, which is kind of a different designation. And you can go to prizepicks.com/guilty. I've been told that that's like the better way to get the discount. So prizepicks.com/guilty is the way to do that. From a Chiefs side of things, we didn't talk a ton about Travis Kelce on Thursday. Travis Kelce, unfortunately, has dominated the Chargers in several matchups. I want to make sure I get this right. So I'm actually going to pull this up for a second. This is Chargers. Okay. Travis Kelce versus the Chargers has had 107 catches for 1,312 yards and scored 9 touchdowns in 19 games. So his worst game against the Chargers, it's been quite a while, but he's been very, very successful versus the Chargers in recent memory. So that's probably, if you're picking from this game, because you have to pick from multiple games. You can't just do all Chargers picks. So if you're picking from this game only, Travis Kelce's receiving yards number is 56.5. And he's 0.5 for a touchdown for him. And his reception number is 6. So I'm probably going to select one of those for Travis Kelce, just because, unfortunately, I think the Chargers will have a good plan for him. But he loves playing the Chargers. He loves playing on Sunday night. So that's probably where I would go from a Chiefs standpoint.
Yeah, a little obnoxious Staley era thing, I guess, because I feel like initially it was Derwin's on the field, they're gone. And no Travis Kelce. You don't really see him much. Derwin James off the field, a lot of Travis Kelce. But then it just was kind of like Staley's the coordinator and whatever. I think we saw Kelce and Mahomes get, last time they were in Arrowhead, what did they get? 200 first half yak yards. Not even counting the total yards. I mean,
they were playing a ton of zone against Travis Kelce, and it's like everybody knows that's what you don't do. And he was giving a ton of free releases. It was so stupid.
Yeah, it really is. I won't select anything for Noah Gray, but it's been odd to see Noah Gray he's almost at 400 yards this season, which is great for him. Sucks for Chargers fans. We have to watch.
He's like their second receiver, basically.
Yeah, no, he's very involved. So his numbers at 26.5 receiving yards. His last couple of games, he had 58 against the Raiders, 66 against the Panthers, 23 yards against the Bills, but 2 touchdowns. So he's pretty involved. 31 catches, 373 yards. I don't know how involved he'll be this week, but that's an intriguing one. Yeah, Kelce on the more. The numbers used to be insane. It used to be 77.5, 80, 90, whatever yards for Kelce. When you're in the 50s, I think at that point, even if the Chargers are cruising and they're winning, there's always like that last 30 yards. There's going to be 30 Kelce yards on the final drive. I don't know who's winning that game, but there's going to be 30 Kelce yards in that final drive. It'll be a couple of good first downs, and we're all going to hate it.
Yeah, it's frustrating for sure. But yeah, there's a couple other ones if you're interested in the Chiefs, but I think Kelce and Gray are probably they're the ones. So Travis Kelce in the first matchup, I shouldn't have deleted this.
I got it. He had 7 catches for 89 yards the last time they played the Chargers. Yeah. Although he had 38 yards on that first play, and then it was mostly quiet. And then I'm sure he had 30 yards on the final drive, just because I just said that.
Yeah, the Chargers did a great job in basically like the middle 70% of the game against Kelce. And then there were a couple plays on the first drive, second drive, and then the last drive. That was obviously the game that Rashee Rice got injured in also. And Isaiah Pacheco did not play in that game. So the Chiefs kind of went very run heavy in the first matchup. And when they needed to go to Travis, they were still able to do that. Derwin did not play, for what it's worth, in that game.
Yep.
So that's a big factor. I'm curious if Tony Jefferson can't play in this one, is how much does Derwin move around? I think that's a big potential
Yeah.
storyline to look at. But either way, I think they'll have I think they'll have a good plan for him. DeAndre Hopkins obviously is on the Chiefs this time around, so
Yes.
that's gonna be fun to watch how they match up with him. I would expect a lot of Cam Hart for that play, so should be fun, man. I think the Chargers defense is in a much better spot this time around against the Chiefs.
Yeah. Dang. I just looking at the receiving numbers for the Chargers. That was an ugly offensive day, guys.
Yeah, I was in the stands for that one.
Oh yeah, that's right.
The first time was incredible, and we were like kind of looking at each other. Me and Brooke were like, "Oh, okay, like is this going to be one of those days?" But then they put Sam Mustipher one-on-one against Chris Jones several times, and
Did it work?
No, it did not.
Oh shit.
So yeah, that was frustrating. So hopefully we can get to a spot where the Chargers offense can be a little bit more productive. They scored 10 points on their first 2 drives, and then it was a whole lot of nothing after that.
Yep. So anyway, there's even a fourth quarter thing, by the way, guys. If you really want to ensure your money is well spent this weekend, boy, go find the Chargers offensive fourth quarter lines or whatever and just slam the less on them.
Yeah, I didn't know that you could do fourth quarter. I knew about halftime one. So this is again why PrizePicks is the best. And you gotta go to prizepicks.com/guilty to get in on the action. Okay, let's get to some of these questions. If you sent a question earlier in the chat and want to make sure it gets answered, please type it in again because I don't know how much I want to scroll all the way back up to the top. But we'll start with some of our super chats. Of course, from Dark Samus here kicking us off. He says Zion Johnson is the key. Got to use his super strength.
I'm all about the Zion Johnson's good game here. I think if he has a really good game here, might be a nice shift among Chargers fans. We've been praising him the last few weeks, but it doesn't feel consensus among the fan base, mostly because like who's watching the interior offensive line. You see it when it's a bad sack and a bad hit. You don't notice the rest of the game. But he's been playing well. With that said, I'm assuming that they're just going to find the right guard and go after the right guard. If that's Trey, if that's Sawyer on 5 plays, whatever, I think they're just going to go after the right guard this week.
Yeah, so they move Chris Jones around a lot. And he kind of, when I watch them play, it looks like he just kind of has the freedom of going wherever he wants on any given play. And sometimes that includes like kicking out to the edge or going up against the center or whatever. But then when it comes down to crunch time, they always isolate him against whoever the biggest concern is. So the first matchup, that was obviously a lot of Sam Mustipher. This time around, I expect him to move around a lot. I don't know how much we'll see him against the tackles just because the Chargers tackles are amazing. So to me, if you're the Chiefs, like you're focusing Chris Jones like exclusively on the interior this week. Maybe you bounce him around, see how things go, on both sides. But when push comes to shove, I expect him to line up against Trey Pipkins a lot in crunch time. So it's going to be on the Chargers, obviously, to figure out how to double team Chris Jones and make sure that he's not wrecking your game plan, because they did not do a bad job. They did an awful job in the first matchup of accounting for Chris Jones. So they need to do a much better preparation plan for Chris Jones this week, because it was not pretty last time around. And I think from a general standpoint, the protection plans have been better recently. There's been fewer free rushers. There's been fewer times like, where Max Crosby, Chris Jones, and TJ Watt and everybody like that was good in the first few weeks that the Chargers were facing. We're getting like free rushes once or twice a game. That issue has kind of gone away, which is good. So hopefully that can continue for Chris Jones. So I understand why you would say Zion Johnson is the key, but to me it's Trey Pipkins, because Trey is the weak link right now, and he's the one that's probably going to be isolated against Chris Jones.
Yeah. If they're going to go best on best and survive, and they have to run the football against a very good rush defense, I could see why you maybe go with Zion there. Zion and Slater together to the left, like that is your best shot at a good rushing offense.
Sure.
So yeah, in that respect, I think that makes sense.
Yeah. Steven Gillard is back in here as a member. He says, "Let's beat the effing Chiefs." It would be great, man. We both are picking the Chiefs to win because it's been a hot minute since we've seen the Chargers beat Patrick Mahomes. But listen, man, if they can beat the Chiefs on Sunday night, it just feels like it would really establish where they're at as a team this season.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to talk about a positive momentum boost, winning at
Whew.
Arrowhead, staying alive in the divisional race. Like that would be huge for this Chargers team.
Yeah, that would definitely be an announcement to the world. Everyone's in love with Jim Harbaugh and this team and everything, but that's a real announcement to the world. Like, you take us for real. Of course, the narrative will be, are the Chiefs doomed? Are they overrated? And they probably won't talk about the Chargers a ton, but I do think that would be a nice announcement win for the Chargers, who haven't really had, I think, that statement win versus a great team yet.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Anthony Ray in the chat says that you two have the same birthday.
Happy birthday, July 29th of next year. I'll be 30 next year. You don't have to tell me how old you're going to be, but happy birthday in advance. July is a great time to have a birthday. No school, always tons of movies, great weather. It's good stuff.
Yeah, it's much better than having a January birthday. I can say that for sure. Turning 31 next month. So for what it's worth.
Oh, yeah, that's true. And Arjun will be 23, I think.
Right on cue. Dark Samus age matters. Kelce is 35. Hopkins is 33. Derwin is 28. It's so funny to me that like somebody like Derwin is younger than me because I feel like I've been talking about Derwin James, the NFL player, forever.
Yeah.
And he's still younger than me. And like some fans think that he's too old now. And I'm like, okay, let's relax.
Yeah, no, I'm starting to get to like washed running back age. So getting to close to my 30s.
Yeah.
No carries though, so that's good. Fresh legs, but the age is definitely getting there for sure. So
yeah, if we were running backs or corners, we would be out the league next year, both of us.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm getting to that age. What was it? What were they doing? That was, I forget what it was. Someone was doing something like a throwback to they are starting to do like the 90s and 2000s throwback stuff now, like how we used to dress up as the 80s or 70s.
Yeah,
now they're doing 90s and 2000s, yes. And I just want to die.
For Halloween, we had trick-or-treaters come to our house, obviously, and this family, they all dressed up as 2000s rappers. So like one kid was like dressed up as Soulja Boy, and one was like 50 Cent, and one was T-Pain. And I was like, this is so cool, but like, why is this a Halloween costume right now? That makes me feel so old. Working with high school students, obviously, and middle school students is another way to make me feel old. Like I was, when we get a new student at our school, I have to go in and look at their transcripts and like plan their schedules and stuff like that. And I got a new student that was born in 2010. And I was a junior in high school when that happened. When she was born, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So yeah, that working in school makes you feel old.
Yeah.
From several different fronts. But when I saw that birth date of 2010, I was like, oh my gosh.
I had a student who, it was a lot, like we had taken our assessment, we were done the last 10 minutes, and he had Nintendo 64 on his computer, and he could not believe that I knew all like the different places to go for Mario N64. Like I knew all the tips and tricks and where the star was and how to beat this level. They're like, how do you know this? I'm like, I was alive when this stupid thing came out. I played this thing, and we didn't have the internet really. We had to figure it out on our own or read a book or a manual, that like, I miss those days of just like, you didn't really know how to do anything. It was all just like a legend, for all like the Pokemon. You didn't play Pokemon, but like, oh, if you do this and that, you'll get this, whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, they could not. I was a legend for 10 minutes because I knew where all the things were in the Nintendo 64 game, which I was born and grew up playing. So that's where we're at, guys.
Last thing about this conversation, one of my students was telling me that CDs are now considered like vintage. And you know how people used to collect vinyls? Like
they still exist.
They still exist, but like people are now starting to collect CDs as like vintage in the same way that they used to do with vinyls. And I was like, bro, I hate that so much.
Oh man. I guess. Wow, that's brutal. I mean, it's cool. Like we all had our, CD like rack or whatever. We used to have like that DVD player, like the carousel. There's like 500 movies, and you put the disc in, and
Yeah,
yeah,
that's how I
lovely.
used to go. My first CD was Green Day.
Nice.
It was a great
Nice.
CD. My brother got it for me. He was super into Green Day, so it was kind of I think it was a birthday present for me that year. But yeah, I do not miss CD players, but going to the music store and getting CDs for the birthday was kind of an annual thing for me. So I have very fond memories of doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I used to have a CD player, and I think I put in because I was a little kid, like put in like the Tarzan soundtrack, which is amazing, obviously. I had the Pokemon 2000 soundtrack because my uncle's the drummer for Weird Al, so the Weird Al signed the album for me because they have a song on there, the Pokemon. If you know who I'm talking about in the chat, people. So I play that all the time. Yes, the Pokemon, which is pretty good.
Poppy quit trying to make me feel old. I grew up with black and white CD.
I know. I'm 29. Like I cannot be. I really cannot.
I know.
Be complaining.
It's just because we work with teenagers and it makes us feel old every single week.
Yeah, I'm very sorry. Yes, all that. We make fun of. I make fun of my parents for that all the time. Ooh,
Like I
Pearl
said, his
Jam.
first CD was Pearl Jam 10.
Nice.
Steven said his
Meteora by
first CD
Linkin
was
Park.
Meteora by Linkin
Beautiful
Park.
one.
Great
Love
tracks on that album.
Great one. Blockbuster.
Yep.
Well, let's just who cares about football? Let's just talk about being old or whatever age you are. Going to Blockbuster, taking forever there's 4 kids in my family. I was 2 years younger than my middle sisters and then 5 than the youngest. So it's like had to pick a movie, took forever. Oh, Gorillas. Okay. Nice. We used to have a projector TV, which is like the size of 2 dressers, but it was awesome because it was huge TV. But it was the glitch Pokemon and Red Blue. Oh yeah, all that sort of stuff. All the things you thought you could do. I forget the rest of them now, but we get more CD people here. Duran. Nice.
Blink-182, Enemy of the State was a great album.
Meatloaf.
Another Pearl Jam.
Yeah, I can't remember my first CD. Like we just had CDs. So I didn't think of my first CD. Meatloaf, The Police, The English Beat. Not really familiar with The English Beat.
Me neither. Blowing on the cartridge of the old Nintendo games.
Heck yeah.
Yep.
I couldn't tell you why, but they did work. It did work.
My brothers and I we would always play video games together, and the Tony Hawk game. Yes, the Tony Hawk game was outstanding on the N64. We loved playing the James Bond GoldenEye game on the Nintendo 64. And then when Halo came out, that was such a game changer for us. We made our parents go buy an Xbox, and it was that year we got it for Christmas, and the entire Christmas break we just sat in our basement and played Halo all break long. It was a ton of fun. We
grew up with the coolest stuff. I think video games, media wise, we grew up with. I mean, it depends what you like, right? But Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, the prequels. So you get all your Star Wars Battlefronts, all the Nintendo, all the Pokemon, all the we just had so much cool stuff.
Yeah, we were
fortunate.
It was a great time to grow up.
System of a Down, Toxicity, nice. Isaiah and Kelce, love that. My wife's her favorite band's a System of a Down. What a fun chat this has turned into.
I love it.
Anyway, the Chargers play the Chiefs, and
I love when we do this. Like every once in a while, we'll jump into random Chargers chats, and people will mention their favorite random Chargers players from back in the day. So I love stuff like this.
Oh yeah, that's great stuff.
But yes, we can get back to football talk if you guys want for the next 15 minutes. We will have a couple super chats to jump into. From Michael, he says it's early, but given the offensive line is not the elite crew Harbaugh is looking for, do you guys expect us to move on from all 3 interior linemen next year?
I think all 3 at this point is a no. I think that's almost impossible for this team to pull off next year. And Zion Johnson is still under contract, so
yeah,
I think Zion is here to stay. If they move him, maybe they move him, but I think Zion Johnson's just starting left guard. And I think you have I think no matter what, it's a new right guard next year. Potentially, if they decide that's Sawyer, I guess. But I think there is a new right guard. I think it's not Trey Pipkins next year at
Yeah.
right guard.
Yeah, so the Chargers can save about $7 million if they cut Trey Pipkins. He still is under contract for next year, for what it's worth. But that seems like a relatively easy thing. You can keep him and be your swing tackle if you want, but I expect a new starting right guard. I think that happens in free agency. I think that's where they focus. You know, their big ticket free agent item is probably at the right guard position. They could do center as well, but right guard to me feels like the path where they can find the best player. So there's Trey Smith, there's Will Fries, there's a few players who are free agents that they could potentially target at right guard. Center's a little bit more dicey. Obviously, Ryan Kelly is kind of the bigger ticket guy, but he's he's older than I am, which in the NFL is old. So, getting back to that conversation, so center feels like a bit more drafty if they're trying to get like a long-term upgrade. So right guard, I feel like is definitely a free agency priority. I feel like that's priority number one for this Chargers franchise is to get like a true star interior player. I think Zion has played a lot better recently, and if he continues to play this way, then he's going to be in the starting lineup again next year. If he can play at this kind of solid left guard level, like he's cheap, he's young, theoretically, like another year in the system, you could see some more improvement. So I would see them justifying that. The question mark is what they do with Bradley Bozeman, because I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. The team loves him. He's a team captain. He's very popular in the locker room. He knows the system. He knows what to do with Greg Roman. It's just kind of a familiarity thing. So I could see a world where they give him like another 1-year contract, and then you draft somebody to be his potential replacement, which I would have loved for them to do this past season. But if Ryan Kelly like stays in Indianapolis, or if Ryan Kelly is, looking for a market-setting center contract, I don't really know what other avenues you have to upgrade over him immediately. So I do think there's a good chance that Bradley is back. I feel good about Zion being back. I feel good about right guard changing. The question for me is what they do with Bozeman.
Yeah, I think they're more likely, even though center feels like the position they'd want to lock down more. Like you said, it's very difficult in free agency, and if you're all gunning for the same one player, that makes things difficult. So I don't see why Bozeman. Well, okay, I can see why he wouldn't be back because you go spend a ton of money on Ryan Kelly. I don't know. That's a very tricky one. That one is tricky for me. I felt very strongly about him leaving 2 months ago, which is, I know, very early, but it was a rough stretch to the year. But he's settled down for the most part. Zion Johnson's definitely settled down. I could very well just see them addressing right guard, keeping Bozeman, and then drafting someone in the draft. I think that's probably where they go at this point.
Somebody suggesting converting Jesse Boygby to center. That's not how converting positions works.
You can switch DJ Chalk to center, maybe, though. Maybe he can contribute there.
Yeah, maybe. Probably would have a better chance. Next one here from J29. He says that he hopes Kamani can get some outside runs on Sunday. I think he looked really good on Sunday. He had a couple pass protection issues, which maybe kind of limited his playing ability in the second half. But I thought running the football, I thought he looked fast. I thought he looked physical and decisive. Mm-hmm. So I agree. Hopefully we see a couple outside runs for him on Sunday. He's the potential explosive threat that they're missing with J.K. Dobbins. So he's the guy that I think you got to give him, 10 touches ish, and that can come rushing or passing. And maybe he turns one or two of those into explosive plays. And we would all be thrilled with that.
Yeah, would love to see 3 catches from him on Sunday.
Yeah. He was the third down player. Like, he did play more on third downs than Gus did. So we'll see. Caleb wants to know if we think there's any gamesmanship going on with Harbaugh not wanting to show off Chark just quite yet, maybe planning a different offense over the last stretch of the season.
I think Well, no, is my answer to that one. I think if you were holding out, I mean, Jim Harbaugh said I think he'd rather like die than let his brother win the game against the Ravens. I think if you were holding back anything, if they were holding back anything, they would have released it that game because that's a very important game. But no, I don't think they've been holding anything back. We do have this conversation. I should say, Chargers fans have this conversation every year where it's like, well, they're saving their good stuff. Like they were bad this week because they're saving it for the good team or the good moments, but it never really is that. Now, maybe they have not, in most of those offenses, they have not developed their offense enough to get to the more creative, fun plays because they're trying to work out the structure of it. But in terms of an individual player, no. I mean, and they went into this season, well, before he got on IR, very much willing to showcase DJ Chark. Like they were going to use him. So I don't think there's any, nothing to show off there. And frankly, with DJ Chark, I don't think there's any surprise once he's on the field what he'd be asked to do.
Yeah, I don't think there's any gamesmanship here. I think DJ Chark has been passed on the depth chart. I think it really is that simple. Jim Harbaugh was asked about it this week, and he was saying that the best players are going to play. It's a meritocracy of playing time. So in their eyes, Jalen Reagor is a better football player right now than DJ Chark. So that's the situation. He is not at that kind of point. And so it's really frustrating. I get it. I at this point wish they would have signed Marquez Valdez-Scantling in the offseason after he visited. I feel pretty confident that he would be out there, at least as a vertical threat. It's just not a situation that's great right now. The injury it changed everything for the way that they were potentially using him. So it's not a great situation. But Jim Harbaugh is not like, he's not going to hold a player back to win future games. Like he's trying to win every game right now. And if he felt like DJ Chark were better than Jalen Reagor, Chark would be out there. If he felt like he were better than Quentin or Joshua Palmer, he would be out there. So he's not playing because this staff trusts the other guys more. And to me, that's the answer.
Yes. We have not brought it up yet, but it's now here in the questions. Thoughts on Asante Samuel Jr. and, of course, the Instagram post. I don't know if DJ Blade Runner has seen this, but he now has an Instagram post up.
Yeah, so if you missed it, yesterday, Asante Samuel Jr. posted on his Instagram story a song lyric that stated, "They trying to pour salt on my name." There have not been any health updates. He was on injury reserve with a shoulder injury. He has been seen at the games, the home games at least, with no like shoulder sling or anything like that. He's on the sidelines, which is kind of a good sign. He's been engaged from what I've seen from like the clips that show him back there. But Jim Harbaugh said this week that he has been instructed by the organization to not give any more updates about Asante Samuel Jr. Last week, he was asked about it, and he told the reporters that they needed to ask Asante about his medical condition. So it's extremely weird. The injury was kind of like a phantom injury, and then he was on injured reserve. And now we're at the point where we're getting cryptic Instagram posts, being instructed not to give updates because there are none. This to me feels like maybe something going on behind the scenes. I don't really want to speculate what, because we don't know, but I don't think this is 100% exclusively related to the injury. I think there could be some other things going on here.
No, even if it's 98% the injury, and that could have been the inciting incident to all this, like injury reserve, like, and that was the thing. But since he's been out of the lineup, it's very clear that this defense just is functioning more like it maybe wants to. And frankly, like, especially with Cam Hart back, you have to play him. He's your future, and he costs you $800,000 a year or whatever it is for the next 4 years. Yeah. So you have to play him. Fulton's back. You have to play him. Tarheeb still is, I mean, even if you wanted the same kind of ball hawking skills that Zont had, now Tarheeb still is doing that. And again,
probably at a higher rate.
Yeah, and you're playing him now, again, paying him $1 million a year or whatever it is. It's nothing to pay those two corners, and they're playing well. So this is a unfortunate but so long to Asante Samuel Jr.'s time with the Chargers. He'll be a free agent next year. He will not return to the team. Whether it's the injury, something off the field, or both, I don't think we'll see him again at this point. They've made it pretty clear he's not going to see the field again. I'm curious now how many of these quiet shuffle to IR moves are just that.
Yeah.
We have both Brendan Rice and Hayden Hurst kind of obviously almost in the same kind of situation. Like, well, here's an injury and we can't really find a spot for you, so IR. And Hayden Hurst like, well, here's an injury and you're not producing, so to IR with you. And I'm not sure the Chargers are necessarily better for having put Brendan Rice on IR. Again, I'm not saying I know anything, but these all kind of fall into the same pattern. So unfortunate for Zont. But these other corners are playing well. And even if they're about even, you had these guys for 3 years after this.
Yeah. We kind of speculated during training camp that Asante might potentially get his spot taken. I don't think any of us really expected this whole situation to unfold. So it's not all that surprising that Tariq Still and Cam Hart have kind of replaced him. But to just like flat out, I don't want to speculate, a ton of stuff, but him not even being a factor is just kind of crazy. So I think some of it's scheme related. Some of it could be, off the field stuff. Some of it could be his own personal health. Again, Harbaugh did call it a medical condition. Maybe he has had some concussions previously. Maybe that's going on. I don't know. There's a ton of factors. We just have no information because the team is not going to give us anything. And Asante is only posting cryptic stuff. So we'll see what happens, but he's not going to be back on the team, which is unfortunate, given what his rookie season was like and what we felt of him coming out of Florida State. It seems like he is going to be moving on. So the Chargers, I think, feel great about their cornerback spot right now with Cam Hart back, Tariq Still, Christian Fulton back. I think you feel really good about that situation. And Jasir Taylor's had some good moments. Dean Leonard is back healthy. So those are your 5, and I think the Chargers feel good about it. And I think Chargers fans should feel good about that group as well, because I think you have some really complementary skill sets. I think they can all take away the football. I think they can all tackle. I think they can all do a lot of stuff. So the Chargers are in a really good spot with the cornerback position. And it's unfortunate that Asante is not a part of that plan.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if it's being right, but we've speculated for a lot of these players we just mentioned, Hayden Hurst, everyone's like, yeah, big time tight end. And it's like, well, I don't know. With Zont, I'm not really sure if this is 100% a fit. And then when you drop something like Cam Hart, you go, that seems to be kind of more what they want. I'm totally blanking on who I was going to talk about. Brendan Rice. Our muted reaction to the draft was met with a lot of criticism, and that has not really panned out. And DJ Chark, I was more optimistic than you were, but both of us were like, I don't know. There's a huge injury history, and his numbers were basically Quentin Johnston level. But a lot of people said that, Ben Johnson couldn't do it, so Greg Roman would. That hasn't worked out either. So unfortunately, with a lot of these, it's been kind of the more negative side. So hopefully things are better. Bliss points out, at least Simi showed the photographic proof that he's definitely on IR because he got run over by a truck, it looked like.
I do think that the Brendan Rice thing was at least a little bit more injury related. Hayden Hurst, like that's flat out roster manipulation, in my opinion, because he was injured and then he came back and was not playing. And then he was like on the injury report with a personal issue for 2 weeks straight. And then it was like, boom, injury reserve. So that's a little roster manipulation for me. He is on the sidelines as well, active on game days, which has been good to see. He still is warming up and stuff like that with the team and things like that. But yeah, I mean, that's a situation where, they wanted to do the Tucker Fisk thing. It's gone pretty well. I've been surprised at the lack of Stone Smart in replace of Hayden Hurst, but we'll see what happens. DJ Chark has been getting positive mentions from the coaching staff at every single press conference. He is not playing. I think we need to stop trying to put too much stock in the press conferences. They will say positive things about basically everyone. at the press conferences, and he is not playing. He might play a little bit more this week because Ladd is hurt, but Chark is your wide receiver 5, and I think he might even be behind Darius Davis at this point. So,
oh yeah, he's behind Darius Davis, I think for sure. Curious where he would be if Rice were off IR. Curious where he'd be when Chenault gets back up to speed. I am very curious if we're a few weeks away from them cutting DJ Chark.
that would not shock me at all.
No, because especially if they think Chenault can contribute at all on special teams.
If Simi can come back,
that's
Simi is on the roster over Chark.
Yeah, that's not a question in my mind at all. Which is crazy to say at this point. Not that we were huge Chark fans, but I wouldn't have guessed this 4 months ago. But
no, definitely not. Okay, do we have any more super chats? No. The last thing I want to talk about, I'm glad somebody brought this up. Saint says that he wants Ashton in the draft. That's Ashton Genty, the running back from Boise State. So he obviously had an awesome night last night against UNLV, as Boise State has won the Mountain West. They're going to be a playoff team. He needs 132 yards to pass Barry Sanders for the most yards in a college football season in college football history. Granted, he will do it if he passes him, he'll do it with 2 extra games because Barry Sanders did not play in a playoff game. But Ashton Genty, to me, is somebody that should 100% be drafted in the top 10. Let's say, hypothetically speaking, that Ashton Genty falls in the draft and the Chargers are picking at like 22, 23. What would you think, Tyler, about the Chargers drafting a running back that's kind of we have not started our draft prep. I will say that we have not watched tape, but this is kind of like the Bijan conversation that we had from 2 years ago, except the Chargers are now run by a group that actually wants to run the football. So hypothetically speaking, if the Chargers drafted Ashton Genty, what would your thoughts be in the first round?
The good news is that free agency comes before draft, and there are several picks after that first round selection. I'd be in favor of it. Absolutely in favor of it, so long as things are solidified in free agency. If you're going into the draft and you don't have a starting center or guard that you feel good about, or I don't know, Poona Ford walks in free agency and you are down to Ibogbe and Otito at defensive tackle, I'm sorry, you have to fill that need with a not running back. But if you've done enough of your work and you feel good about, and I have not watched this class, if you feel good enough about the second, third, fourth, fifth rounds, I mean, I trust Joe Ortiz to get it done.
Yeah.
I'd be all for it. I can't imagine another player I'd want more at that spot unless there are severe roster holes. So as long as they take care of business and it looks like rounds 2 and 3 can make up the rest, yeah, I'm all for it.
Yeah, obviously part of this is Ashton would have to fall that far, which I personally don't see happening. Bijan went top 10 in a class that had 3 legitimate top tier quarterback prospects. He was number 8 in that class. Jahmyr Gibbs went 12 in that class. So we're starting to see running back become more valuable again. And this upcoming draft class, the quarterback group is an atrocity. It is an awful quarterback class. And so good for the Raiders that you're going to be drafting a quarterback in this specific class. There's no real like top tier wide receiver. You know, I know people are big fans of like Travis Hunter, but I think that's going to pivot more towards him being a corner in the NFL. So there's no real like top tier receiver. There's no real top tier quarterback. The offensive line group is a concern. So all of that being said, somebody like Ashton Genty should be a top 10 pick, like no brainer in my opinion, in this specific class. And I think probably in any class. There is another running back from Iowa that Dane Brugler thinks is going to be a first round pick, Caleb Johnson as well. So this same kind of conversation could apply to him. But I think the Chargers could look at this specific class and see you don't really have the chance at a premium player where they're going to be picking. You know, maybe you consider one of the tight ends at that point. And if it's a running back, I think those 2 positions would be kind of your best chance to get a premium difference maker because just kind of positional value. So I think tight end, running back are very much in play for the Chargers in the first round this year, just because of where they're going to be picking and this class just not being as strong at skill positions, quarterback, stuff like that.
Yeah, and I'm not locked into receiver in round 1 just because for the sake of it. I'm sure that'll be half the fan base, and I would understand it, but we'll see. I don't know. But ask me in 4 months, and we'll be able to tell you, or just ask Thomas Martinez and Alex Katzen. They'll tell you.
Yeah. My preference right now, like just positional, like value standpoint, I would love for them to get a defensive tackle or an edge rusher.
Yep.
But they might not be there, and the Chargers might be in a position where those players are all gone and stuff like that. So
yeah,
they might be at a spot where they take one of these non-premium positions to get a premium talent and to try and upgrade the roster that way.
Yep.
Dark Samus back with our last super chat. Says Metroid Prime 2 is the origin of Dark Samus. I love playing with Dark Samus on Super Smash Brothers. It's one of my favorite characters to play with. So I've always appreciated the name here popping up every single time. So appreciate Dark Samus for all of the super chats that he sends every single episode.
Awesome.
All right. That is going to do it for us. Tyler, any final thoughts before we head out?
Nope.
All right. Tomorrow, huge game for the Chargers. It's like the only good game on the slate. So Sunday Night Football should be a lot of fun. I can't wait to see how this team responds to this specific moment. I hope they prove us wrong. I hope they are able to get out of there with a win and just kind of set the tone for the rest of the season going here on out and potentially playing for this 5 seed. Who knows? Maybe the Chiefs kind of stumble. Maybe they can win the division. Stuff like that. Very much in play if you beat the Chiefs tomorrow night. Okay. Hope everybody has a great championship Saturday. If you have teams you are rooting for tonight, I hope they all win, unless you're a Penn State fan. But this has been a great Saturday. We appreciate the chat today. Super chats have been fun. We will see you guys tomorrow night, immediately after the game is over. This has been the Guilty as Charged podcast. As always, bold up.